What is a woman? A ridiculous, inane question that we have only been forced to ask because of the prevailing delusion ballooning like a mushroom cloud in the Western world. Gender ideology attempts to undermine biological definitions and absolutes like the gender binary by parading exceptions to the rules and definitions as if statistically rare and abstract inconsistencies have the ability to upend empirical realities. When debating trans activists, they proffer identical talking points about intersex people, women who have had hysterectomies, have been made infertile by disease, or who were born barren. Those with irregular menstruation cycles or none at all, and a plethora of other similarly absurd postulants repeated like trained seals clapping on command. The intersex argument is easily the hollowest, most obvious, and desperate grasping by greedy hands at Socratic exception finding, but it is also the most representative of the generally flawed tactics festering in the trans toolkit. The intersex condition is a deformation, a genetic anomaly exceptional in that its very existence is evidence of the normality of the gender binary. Such mutation only reinforces rather than betrays typical primary sexual characteristics. We notice such an oddity because it contrasts our expectations. It is the exception that again proves the rule rather than otherwise. Even if such instances weren't so astronomically infrequent as to render them totally insubstantial, hermaphroditic individuals are still born with either XX or XY chromosomes, ultimately manifesting as either male or female regardless of mutation. Never in recorded history has a person existed who can at once impregnate and be impregnated, hence able to impregnate oneself. Furthermore, being intersex is a physical condition, not an identity. It has nothing to do with orientation and nothing which is inherently similar to transgenderism. Its deployment from the ideological arsenal is more appropriation from a movement that co-opts everything it possibly can. Lastly, though gender ideologues enjoy exalting this condition as proof of a gender spectrum and evidence of biological sex as fake, what they are instead putting on full display is the characteristic fundamental lack of biological discernment and philosophical reckoning, clearly presenting to the world the shallowness, not of a single argument, but the overall origami nature of their entire side of the debate, twisted into a convenient shape but crushed by the slightest pressure. A woman born barren, when she attempts to conceive repeatedly and fails, will then seek out the accordant medical professionals to find out why. It is this very deviancy from biologically based expectation, founded upon the defining essence of femininity, that alerts her that something is wrong and demonstrates the nature of her womanhood better than anything else ever could. The same reasoning applies to women who become infertile through external causes, such as surgery or disease. Both so-called exceptions again prove the rule rather than overturn it. Yet another argument which gender ideologues, with all the panic of a criminal willing to promulgate any deceit to allay the suspicions of his interrogators, are secondary sex traits. The gender thieves attempt to soften the hard reality of biological sex, as if they have the power to poke holes into objective truth and reduce its consistency to that of a block of Swiss cheese, by pointing out that the common sex-based characteristics and preferences of boys and girls, women and men, are inconsistently distributed. Some boys are short, some girls are tall, some men don't grow full beards, some women have facial hair. Some men get breast cancer, some women are flat-chested, some boys like to play with Barbie, some girls favor Hot Wheels, some boys like pink, some girls like blue. This talking point has the strength of an overfilled water balloon stretched to the point of bursting. Such reasoning appears substantial, but explodes with the slightest prick. If the gender debate were a mathematical equation, then secondary sex characteristics would be the X's and Y's. In other words, the variables. These characteristics are rooted in random genetic distribution. Most men are indeed taller than women, but it is also true that women can be taller than men. This does not change that when viewed through median distributions, men are on average taller than women. Tall parents can obviously produce a tall daughter. However, if any of their ancestors were short, they might also produce a shorter man. These traits can be as varied as the genetic history of the bloodline. While there are definable traits where genders are concerned, these norms do not define the genders. That's why secondary sex traits can and do vary between males and females. On the other hand, primary sex characteristics in our metaphorical equation would be the constants, definable quantities that do not ever change. All men are born with the potential to impregnate. All women are born with the potential to conceive. Men are born with male genitalia, and women are born with female genitalia. Women are born with cervixes, men are born with prostates. Men produce sperm, women produce eggs. Men have XX chromosomes, women have XY. Again, primary sexual characteristics are defined quantities that remain constant from man to man and woman to woman. They do not vary, but for exceptional and at times extreme circumstances so infrequent as to be rendered outside the realm of reasonable consideration. The real problem with gender ideology's exploitation of exceptions is that they only disprove the rule when dealing with hypotheticals or philosophical questions. When we are dealing with cold, hard, objective truths, exceptions serve as novel curiosities which may or may not be relevant or even worthy of study, especially when based on the scarcest, most extreme cases. Furthermore, the binary deniers are oblivious to a truth as glaring as an emergency flare brightening the darkest sky. There are exceptions to every rule. Some people are born with extra fingers. Does that mean we cease to define the hand as having 5? Some dogs must have a leg amputated due to tumorous growths. Does that mean we cease to define canines as being quadrupeds? Penguins, emus, and ostriches don't fly. Should we stop expecting birds to take to the skies? Beyond the event horizon of a black hole, the very laws of physics break down entirely. Does that mean that those laws do not govern the rest of the universe? The answer to these questions is so obvious as to require no response. Again, there is no statement of fact, no natural or theoretical principle, no definition that holds true under all circumstances.